All right, let's also welcome now Civic Root Advocacy's Managing Director, Mr. Siyabulela Jentile. Siyabulela, thank you so much for being with us. So very late last year, you and I think you remember, had engaged on a similar matter at the back, of course, of that Western Cape judgment and sort of a throw forward as to what the impasse of those placements at that particular time will actually result in come January. Well, we're here now. Surely authorities should have mitigated all these and provided additional measures. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you and the viewers at home. And, you know, as you have rightfully said, we spoke about this and we knew this was going to happen, honestly. I'm just glad that it didn't happen in many other schools. But what is at least a key takeaway for me here is that the parents' frustration is indeed legitimate. And we need to say that it's rooted in systemic failure. What is happening at Addington Primary School is not a fight between South Africans and foreign parents. For me, it's a failure of the state, and it's what we were talking about last year. When government fails to plan for learner placements or, to expand school capacities, communities are pushed into conflicts and competition, and that frustration is real. But we can never, Alicia, at any given point in the democratic South Africa, want to excuse violence. So even the sentiments of xenophobia, we cannot accept those, and they must be condemned with the contempt that they deserve.
I'm sure you heard my previous guest, Supotemlu, there from the Education Department when I posed that question about the constitutional obligation of course, when it comes to the placement of South African children versus those of foreign nationals. I mean, what do you think about his response to that?
Look, I think it was clear that, the Department of South Africa is guided by the Constitution. And the Constitution is also very clear in that every learner has got the right to education. And whether we agree with that or not, it's another debate, it's another topic that needs to be taken up at a different level. But indeed, I agree with him that every learner deserves an opportunity to actually, be placed in a school. In terms of the preferential treatment that is out there, look, one, there is no policy that says that South African schools need to prioritize foreign learners or children of foreign nationals. If that is happening in any schools, it's wrong, and anyone who's doing that should be charged by the law. It's important that there is no prioritization for foreign learners here in South Africa, but it's also the obligation of the government of South Africa to ensure that the children of South Africans are placed in South African schools, and that there cannot be any, two ways around that. So there needs to be, Alicia, an urgent intervention by the department. I don't have so much confidence on the department, because this thing should not have escalated to this level that we are seeing. But there needs to be an urgent intervention, one that is transparent, that places and prioritizes the learners, and engage with parents and, on what are the next steps. We've seen in Gauteng that they don't communicate effectively. We've seen in the Western Cape, they still have issues with placement. So we need to call to all South African learners and parents in particular. Violence will never solve anything. We've got a policy issue here. We've got systemic failures by government that needs to be addressed. We cannot protest in each and every school where there's issues. We need to change pieces of legislation that allow the inefficiencies that we are seeing in government.
Absolutely. And it is a violation of those children, South African or not, that will now have to sit out the school term or even the school year, Siyabulela, due to the fact that they were not placed effectively at school. You spoke about something just now, and I want to know, what is then the obligation of government when it comes to effectively addressing this situation, in your view, Siyabulela? As we discussed even last year, the issue of this introduction of this placement system, still fraught with inconsistencies years later, was not even necessary in the first place. I was very concerned when Mlu just said that SGBs can actually institute their own acceptance standards. Of course, he says they cannot supersede the Constitution. But, I mean, we've heard about some principals taking bribes, as well as other school officials taking bribes, as we are hearing in the matter at Addington Primary School.
And that is incorrect, Alicia. The government has got the responsibilities mandated by the Constitution to ensure that every learner in South Africa receives education. And so it is it lies squarely on their doorstep to ensure that every learner, by November, December, we should be knowing where which learner is going, not what we are currently seeing in South Africa. So it is their responsibility, and they cannot relegate it to SGBs, or they cannot relegate it to anyone else. I believe that the school governing bodies have got their own unique responsibilities and roles that they need to play in our schools. But I genuinely do not believe that placements should be left to them alone. And coming to principals who are actually receiving bribes, again, there hasn't been any credible evidence that we have seen, of these cases. It's people who are saying things out there, but that should not be, taken lightly. If people have got evidence of principals or any leaders in schools who are taking bribes, they need to make sure that they report them and they must be arrested. But we cannot base entire campaigns and protest action based on hearsays without evidence. That is very dangerous, and it's regressing the gains of our democracy. So government must do the right thing. They need to take responsibility. They need to review, as I said to you last year, this entire placement systems, because in its current shape and form, it is not benefiting anyone. Even the very same foreign nationals are also not benefiting from this thing, if you're listening to some of the stories. So government needs to take responsibility and do the right thing, and listen to South Africans, listen to the people of South Africa, listen to the parents. We are the ones on the ground. These are our children, and they need education. So government must do the right thing and stop coming up with excuses. Lastly, Alicia, I do want to say to the people of South Africa, it is understandable. The anger, the frustration is understandable, and it's legitimate. However, we must not allow ourselves to be mobilized to violence or to xenophobic sentiments. We need to resolve these matters in an amicable way, as frustrating and as stressful as they are. Let's hold our government to account, because we put them in power. And if they're not listening to us, the only way we can punish them is through the ballot.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you so much for that. Siyabulela Jentile is with the Civic Route Advocacy. He's the managing director, also weighing in on the placement matters at public schools, in particular, the scenes unfolding outside of Addington Primary School.